SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 171. I'm your host, Spencer Presley, and today is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I don't think I've done one of these solo podcasts since probably right around the time of Tokyo Mirage Sessions with the whole censorship update. So this week's episode is going to be a little bit more kind of technical in terms of what we're talking about, but hopefully you guys can still kind of enjoy a little bit more of a discussion at you as opposed to me having another guest on. So, first up, before we get into the big meat and potatoes of today's news, I want to discuss Persona 5 Royal. I know we never talk about that game on this podcast. So, as of today's recording, which should be the day you guys are listening to this, Persona 5 Royal actually got a second patch, which is still weird for me to say because Atlas USA in the past has been very, I don't want to say apprehensive because they've never really shown that they aren't interested in patching their games. It's just surprising. So we had a day one patch that released actually before the game was officially out back in March, but now 2 months later, we now have version 1.02. Unfortunately, with this update though, it is coming in at a little bit around in between 800 and 900 megabytes, depending on whatever you're downloading. The only weird thing about this is it's a pretty sizable download, especially for how little it seems to do. So we don't have detailed patch notes, unfortunately. If you go to your PlayStation and look at the update history, all it says is that version 1.02 has made minor text adjustments. Now, through all the digging I could do before this episode went live, the best source that we really have right now is from PSU. And PSU apparently has gotten this from Atlas, saying that the other patch notes, the other patch fixes come in the form of addressing game crashing issues, added fixes for stuttering and lag fixes, fixed audio-related issues, stability, performance improvements added, and other minor-the-hood fixes. So I'm going to say take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. I see that they sourced it as coming from Atlas, but for whatever reason, I cannot seem to find anyone else outside of this website saying this is the case. It seems weird that if all those changes were there, they wouldn't be a little bit more specific. The only thing I really know for sure that has been changed is there are some skill descriptions that are now properly displayed, and that's been a known issue since before Royal was even out in the West. But the more surprising thing for me is the fact that it's talking about stability issues being fixed in performance, where, to my knowledge, there were no extra patches for Japan getting this. So it seems kind of odd that we're getting that, but if it is true and it does make things better, great. My whole thing is if you're just going to ask people to download almost a whole extra gigabyte of data for a game that's released over a month ago, probably want to say a little bit more than text changes and different fixes like that. But really, really minor thing for anyone out there who's still playing Persona 5 or is curious about that update. There you go. It is live now, so you can check it out on your PlayStation 4. Now, today's main topic. I did not think that I would be talking about Shin Megami Tensei 5 so soon. And what's funny is you may be asking yourself, hey, Spencer, SMT5 hasn't been in the news recently. Why are you talking about it? So this is the weird thing about the news, is sometimes I kind of make it up myself in the sense of looking at other things happening in the video game industry and kind of extrapolating that into other topics. So what I'm getting at with this is, as of last week, Epic Games unveiled with Jeff Keighley Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 4 has been out since 2014, and Unreal Engine 5 is planning on entering early access in the beginning of 2021, and is going to be fully out in the year-end version of 2021. So what's kind of interesting about this is a little Nintendo Switch exclusive developed by Atlus called Shin Megami Tensei 5. Now, as most people kind of tend to forget, SMT5 is not only interesting for the fact that it is a Switch exclusive, this is Atlus's first time ever using Unreal Engine. They are developing Shin Megami Tensei 5 exclusively with Unreal Engine 4, and this has led to, obviously, lots of development challenges on their end, as this is their first time really using it. But as I've talked about in previous podcasts, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be for the better quality of the game, because Unreal Engine 4, in all of my experience of having used it, it has just been above and beyond like a very flexible engine, whether it be Eastern games or Western games. It's just had a lot of success. It's a very flexible engine, as you can tell by the fact that like Unreal Engine can run on Switch, Xbox, PS4, iOS, Android, all sorts of systems. Now, why am I talking about Unreal Engine 5 being related to SMT5? So, as I said, the engine plans on coming out in 2021, and we all kind of have to be honest with ourselves here. Shin Megami Tensei 5, and I would love to be proven wrong as soon as this episode gets uploaded, but we have to be honest with ourselves that SMT5, there's no way that game is coming out this year. And if by some miracle it does, very slim chance that it would be a worldwide release on top of that. So we now have to have that discussion as fans and whatnot of, hey, there's a very, very high chance that Unreal Engine 5 is going to be out, and you're going to be seeing games either getting announced, probably not seeing a ton of AAA games being released on it in 2021. But let's say, hypothetically, SMT5 releases, let's say, just pulling this out of my butt, fall to summer of 2021. And we're seeing a lot more Unreal Engine 5 games. SMT5 is on the Switch, and it is being built primarily with Unreal Engine 4. And if anyone here has really a lot of experience with the Switch, especially with Unreal Engine games, that system can run Unreal Engine 4, but it is proven time and time again that it is hard to optimize for that system. The Switch is running on pretty old hardware even by the time it launched in 2017. It's running on old hardware that is possible to make games like Fortnite and Dragon Quest XI run, but you're not seeing games like Dragon Quest XI launch every other month. Like, Square Enix has specifically talked about how much of a hurdle it was to get that version of Dragon Quest XI running because of the engine capabilities and everything involved with it. So obviously, visually impressive games can come out for the system and work in Unreal, but you have to kind of have that caveat. I don't think a lot of people look at the Switch as being a very technically impressive system for Unreal games. I think people often will associate Nintendo games. They'll think of Mario Odyssey, Hyrule Warriors, stuff like that. But kind of goes back to the issue of visual perception. Outside of stuff like Dragon Quest XI, even though Dragon Quest XI on Switch is a fantastic game, it looks great, as soon as you show someone the PlayStation 4 version of that, it's immediately less impressive. Like, yes, it's impressive, it runs on the hardware, but it's not anything that's going to really be standing toe-to-toe with anything, even back when Dragon Quest XI released last year on the Switch. So, kind of on that same topic, we have to think about this. Okay, a lot of games are made with Unreal Engine. Not a lot of games are made with Unreal Engine 4 on the Switch, let alone are exclusive. So, obviously, we kind of have to take out of the equation third-party stuff, whether it be like Snake Pass or Fortnite, and even things like Dragon Quest XI, where even though that was basically built like its own SKU, it still had the core of that PlayStation 4 version as its kind of foundation to build up what it could become, even though it did add a lot of new content. And what's really weird is even though the system's been out for over 3 years, the largest example of a game that uses Unreal Engine 4 and is a Switch exclusive, even though it later did get brought over to other systems, is Octopath Traveler. So Octopath Traveler is a very gorgeous pixeled, like it's like a 2.5D pixel art game of, it's these very beautifully drawn pixel animations for the battle system in this kind of what it's like a basically, if you've never seen the game, it is a kind of pick like a generic fantasy 3D background, but the players and the enemies are made up out of this gorgeous HD Super Nintendo art style. And so while that's a great use of like, hey, we're going to use the flexibility of Unreal Engine 4 and the limitations of the Switch by like, hey, instead of having these crazy detailed 3D character models, why don't we just make these gorgeous, enormous sprites that just like super stand out but are not technically taxing? Now, that game, Octopath Traveler, is a very, very unique kind of case in terms of, hey, it launched as a Switch exclusive, it was made on Unreal Engine 4, and all these kind of things considered, but you have to think about Atlas as a developer and Atlas's history, especially in terms of presentation, whether it be with their own engines or just all their games in general, and I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about this, of like, we love Atlas. Like, we love all of their games. We love, like, the world. We love the way that their presentation is set up. A lot of games have very unique vibes and kind of settings. Like, I love Catherine. I love the mood that gives out. I love the world of DDS. I love stuff like Strange Journey. But if you're just showing an Atlas game to Joe Schmo consumer, you're probably not going to catch his attention with, I'm willing to say, almost 90% of mainline Atlas games, especially when we're just talking about Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. Like, if we're being honest, as much as I love all of these kind of games that Atlas has developed, there's a reason Persona 5 resonates with so many people when it released. It is a very visually impressive and a visually unique game. Yes, there are aspects like the models might not always be of the highest quality and some of the animations may be lacking, but people don't always sit back and remember, hey, do you remember that weird animation for a Critical Strike? People think of the menus, people think of the music, people think of the background and the shading and the level up stuff of like every battle result screen. They think of the flashy, in-your-face stuff that helps Persona 5 personify itself in terms of having a unique identity, not only as a game, but as something that, even if someone has never seen Persona, they would sit there and be like, oh, wow, this is different. There's not a lot of games that are doing this, and even still to this day after 3 years. Getting back to the crux of the issue, what does this have to do with SMT5 and Unreal Engine? So Epic has already said that, and I'm just going to read this from their website to give people a little bit of a heads up, because Unreal Engine 4.25, which is the current version of the engine, is going to be supported on next-gen hardware along with everything that it works with right now. So PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, stuff like that. And all of those games being built in Unreal Engine 4 are going to be forward compatible with Unreal Engine 5. Now, when they mean it's forward compatible, yes, you're bringing in those assets. You're not going to have to start everything over from scratch. Like, let's say if Atlas did want to make SMT5 on UE5, they could very easily do that. But Atlas at their core, especially the SMT games, have never really been known for making very, like, kind of visually over the top or kind of crazy games. I would say for the SMT team, or closely related without being the Persona studio, the closest thing we really have to them making a very technically impressive game is Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which we know is very bright, very vibrant, uses lots of colors. It oozes that world of J-pop, whether you love it or hate it. That's where its art style really comes from, more so as opposed to making it more Fire Emblem related or SMT inspired. Hence why TMS is so adored by others for its uniqueness, or reviled, obviously, for not really being the crossover a lot of people thought that it should be. But that's a whole other topic for another video. So, going into this, we already kind of know through the couple of concept trailers that we've had so far of SMT5 that, hey, this team isn't really, at least from the outset of everything we've seen for the 2 trailers so far, and yes, it's been many years since we've seen those trailers, but it would be a pretty big stretch to think that we're going to have any sort of more visually different style for these games. I was talking about this with LaRue a couple of weeks ago, actually. We were talking about the fact that he thinks SMT5 is going to be a very core SMT, like kind of like a love letter to classic SMT. And whether you agree with that or not, like you can kind of get those tones from the trailer for sure, and like a lot of different stuff can get picked up by it. But if you think about the visual core elements that are around classic SMT titles, very dark, very dreary, very kind of serious, grim story, and I worry that even with the style and the charm that Atlas has, whether it be with their demons or their protagonists, that a title like that isn't going to look like it's going to be using an engine like Unreal Engine 4 or even 5 to its greatest effect because, hey, at the end of the day, this is a Switch exclusive. Who knows what's going to happen down the line? It may come to other systems. That's still totally up in the air. At the end of the day, we all know that this is going to be a Switch exclusive at launch. So that is already really putting a lot of binds on the development team. The development team is already having to work with a much weaker hardware. So are they even going to be able to get the most out of Unreal Engine 4 in terms of an engine? Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the fact that stuff like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Tekken 7, and whatnot are on the same engine that SMT5 is going to be on is just kind of crazy. And like if you were a developer at Atlas, you'd be sweating bullets. It's like, compare something like this. Compare going back to Tekken. Look at the visual detail, fidelity, and just how smooth and awesome everything looks in Tekken 7. And then on the exact same engine, a game released only a couple of years earlier is the much inferior looking, at least in my opinion, Street Fighter V. Like, yes, they both have their own unique visual styles, but you can obviously tell which one had the more time and effort, and those weren't equal hardware. Those were both PlayStation 4 games. It's just all about manpower, what the kind of visual tone they were going for, and different aspects like that. Like, whether you love Street Fighter V more than Tekken 7 doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's what you're really getting out of that engine. And I think most people could agree that, hey, whether I like Street Fighter more than Tekken 7 is clearly using a lot more bells and whistles available to Unreal Engine 4 as a development tool than Street Fighter 5. So going back to Unreal Engine 5, and let's say Unreal Engine 5 is very flexible, all the new things that it can add will run on Switch the way Epic says. You have to sit back and then think, hey, all the new bells and whistles we've been showing off for Unreal Engine 5 are movie quality assets and interactive games. Is lighting no longer needing to worry about like making multiple lighting or shading structures, like it can all just be one cohesive thing? Atlas already didn't need to worry about this. We knew they weren't going to have movie quality textures. We know that they're not going to have to worry about different shadings for different platforms or what's lighting going to look like on PC compared to Xbox One. Like, they're working on one system. They already have those kind of what would be multi-platform hurdles basically pushed off for if a multi-platform release of SMT5 ever happened, which, like we said, we have no idea if it would ever happen. So all of the visual improvements and stuff that they could be using from Unreal Engine 5 isn't really going to be there for them. Like, yes, they could make SMT5 an Unreal Engine 5 game, but I think, honestly, it'd be smartest for them to, without having to do anything too crazy and uprooting their plans for the visual presentation of that game, like, leave it as an Unreal Engine 4 game. Say, hey, guys, we've been working on this game for over 3 years. It's a Switch exclusive. It just doesn't make sense for us to throw it into 5. Like, yes, it's going to work in 5, but you're going to look at something like the tech demo they showed off unveiling Unreal Engine 5 and then say, hey, this game coming out the same year as this engine. It's like, oh, okay. Like, yes, they're very different things. One is a JRPG, one is a tech demo that was developed in 9 months, but still, it's nothing that's going to like catch people's attentions. And I'm not making the point of this whole podcast to be, hey, should SMT5 be as visually impressive as Persona to get people's attention? No, obviously they can kind of do what they want in terms of how they want their game to look, how they want their game to feel. But I think one of the most important things about series growing and expanding is finding those ways to bring in people into a franchise. And like, what easier way to do that than to have a game that, without even knowing anything about it, ever getting your fingers on it, you can just watch a video and it just instantly suck you in like that. I knew so many people who looked at stuff like, whether it be Persona 4 Arena or Persona 5, just looking at that game and being like, hey, I want to know about this, I want to check it out, even if they weren't necessarily RPG fans. So that's kind of my rambly pitch of, I'm really excited for next gen. I'm really excited to see what benefits other game studios can have with Unreal Engine 5, but I can't seem to get this feeling out of the back of my head that I worry, with all the improvements games, other studios, and developers are making, bringing these new elements of Unreal Engine 5 into their games, by the time SMT5 finally does come out, it's going to look like a lesser impressive title just because, oh, it's another Unreal Engine game and it's just not really doing anything that visually impressive. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Atlas has an ace up their sleeve. I know at the end of the day that I have a lot of faith in that development team. I know that they're kicking their ass just trying to get this game out. I'm not really worried about the game as a total product. I'm more worried about the reception that the general public is going to have for it, and not in the sense of, hey, boo-hoo, not everyone likes my game, I'm going to be upset about it. Obviously, that's not the case. If people like the way SMT5 looks, great. If people hate the way SMT5 looks, fine. That's your own opinion. I'm more so just trying to get ahead of this and being like, hey, we need to temper people's expectations, because what used to be like, oh, holy crap, like when SMT5 was announced as an Unreal Engine 4 game, even though it was on the Switch, people were like, hey, this is great, like this engine has shown that it can do so much and whatnot. But because of that prolonged development time and everything else like that, like, even though the game has never been delayed, I still see people all the time. Like, I even just recently had to, like, correct Gnarly in, like, a group chat. He was like, oh, the game's delayed or whatever. It's like, they never delayed the game. They've never dated the game. Like, it can't be delayed if they've never put a date on it. Yes, you can argue it's been announced too soon, but that's something we've talked about before. But the public reception is easily, where is this game? Why is it taking so long? And what's delaying it? So if it does come out and all of those factors are in people's headset, and Unreal Engine 5 games are popping off left and right in 2021, even if it's just announcements, and SMT5 comes out as a pretty good-looking Unreal Engine 4 game on the Switch, I think it's going to have a harder time getting that visual identity and really making it its own. Like, you could just look at it and be like, wow, look at what they did to really make this game kind of stand out. Either way, that is all my dumb opinions and other little weird stuff, so hopefully all of my ramblings wasn't like too kind of tinfoil hatty. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed listening to that. I have a couple of questions from the community I'm going to be talking about, and then we can wrap up this little one-man rant fest. Alright, our first question comes from Twitter. This is by @Dorcas83. He says, with the PS4 era coming to an end, what are the chances that P5 Scramble is getting the PQ2 treatment, i.e. getting brought over with no dub? Oh my god, I've never actually thought about this. That's a great question to kind of think of. Thankfully, I can immediately tell you, hey, I know that voiceover recording has already happened for Scramble, so you don't need to worry about that. That would be horrifying, though. That's a really interesting question that you would think that, and it makes a lot of sense because, hey, we're getting towards the end of this generation. Who knows that, like, Scramble could just release on last gen when the PS5 is already out. The release date's still kind of up in the air. Like I said, guys, probably getting announced next month, but we still have no idea when the hard release date is. So why is Scramble going to get a dub and PQ2 didn't? Unfortunately, the reality behind this is Atlas viewed it was worthwhile to bring this 3DS game over 2 years after the Switch was out in America, but they didn't really think it was worth it for the English voice cast to come back and re-record everything. So that's more on the fault of not only that, the generation was ending, like the PS4 is, I would say, in its twilight years. I wouldn't say it's ending. We obviously still have stuff like The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. So it's a very different comparison, but I would say even if Scramble was coming out 2 years from now, you would still see a dub with that. I think a large part of PQ2 not getting dubbed was It was a 3DS release. It released 2 years after the Switch had already come out in America at that time, and the fact that it had sold poorly in Japan, so you were a lot less likely. Same thing with Strange Journey Redux. That game had a really rough launch that was only 1 year after the Switch, but because of its poor sales in Japan, they were like, oh my god, why would we dub this? Which is stupid. They obviously should have dubbed both of those games, and I think they would have performed a lot better, at least marginally so, with Western fans, but like I said, whole nother topic, but that's a fantastic question. Okay, next question comes from Lucy Frost, who I'm going to kind of make a version of your question that I think is what you were trying to ask. So it's a little bit Englishy, so apologies if I get anything wrong. They ask, would SMT5 be the best combat if they did the gameplay of TMS? I think there's a lot of interesting sort of elements they could definitely take from there. Obviously, the sessions, how fast the combat is, especially just like even without using fast forward, like that combat is just so snappy. Like when you get chains going, instead of having, oh, here's a once more, go again, making that one more turn just be another attack, another attack, another attack, another attack. Well, it had a really, really good loop to it. I don't think SMT5 is just going to copy TMS, but I think there's a lot of things they could use depending on how much they really want to evolve that system, or if they kind of want to keep it more classic with like smirks and once more and everything like that. Next question from Little Snag _ said, how would you feel about SMT dropping the history of the blank slate main character and introducing one with a set personality, alignments, and arcs? Or the series introducing fully customizable main characters to better fit the projecting of the player's philosophies? Will this hurt marketing potential too much? I'm going to go a little bit backwards. I would say no, it definitely wouldn't hurt marketing, because Atlas has always, I feel, done a really good job of making visually interesting main characters, but in terms of marketing, you very rarely see marketing being like, be your own hero, be whatever. Like, Joker isn't marketed in Persona 5 as being you. It is very clearly, hey, you're making his choices, but Joker's just kind of a sponge in the story. Like, his choices really don't matter. Interesting thought, though, of them dropping the blank slate thing for future titles. I think that'd be very smart. I mean, they've done it before. If I could pick between having a very highly customizable character with personality and whatnot already there, I would choose give me a character you want me to experience. And, like, let's be real. Atlas, with the rare exceptions of when it actually does matter in the story, when you're having those multi-choice questions, it really doesn't matter in most games. Yes, they're going to affect what ending you get, but there are so many examples of I'm asked between A, B, and C, and they all lead to the same answer. So I would rather them hone a lot tighter of a story and give us a character they want us to control and experience the game through, but that is their own character at the end of the day. I think it'd be fine to keep the blank slate and just add a lot more customizable aspects, but for me, there are so many games that do that I would rather just see that writing team fully commit and just be like, here is our character, here is what they are, here is who they are. If you like them, great. If you hate them, great. Like, you are experiencing this person's story, which I just like a lot more. Alex Zeron says, do you think Persona 6's game engine would be Unreal, or will it reuse the engine of P5? And do you think that Atlas will use Unreal Engine 5 for future IPs? I'm going to also answer this one in reverse. So, going off Unreal Engine 5, I'm going to say that, let me think. Depending on how development was once the game is shipped for SMT5, that's going to be the real kind of test of if Atlas is going to go back and look at their other games they have coming out and say, hey, should we implement Unreal Engine 5, or should we stick to our proprietary tech like Persona and other games they've developed? For Persona 6, I think if that game is in any stage of development now, which I do believe it is, judging by how quickly that studio usually works, I wouldn't be surprised if whatever updated version we saw from Royal is in 6. I would love for them to scrap it and really do something next gen because, like I said, I know I'm in the minority, but as much as I love Royal, that's still a PS3 engine at the end of the day. It's a really souped up PS3 game engine, but seeing that on something like PS5 is just going to stand out like way, way, way too much. Not against the mold for what Atlas does as a company, but just something that I think they should do instead. All right, next question comes from Stephen Yip. He says, how has the fandom not gotten used to the long wait times for games? SMT5 came out a long time after SMT3, Persona 5 took a long time after its initial announcement, etc. He has another serious question, but I do actually want to address this. I would say it's all a matter of perspective. I'll never understand it. Like, I think the same reason you see people just perplexed at the idea that SMT5 is taking this long, even though the game's really only been known for about 3 years, is like the same reason why there are people who still look at Tokyo Mirage Sessions and they immediately, even though the game is completely different, even though it was never advertised after its re-reveal, like people still look at Tokyo Mirage Sessions as SMT Cross Fire Emblem, which I think is a very empty-headed thing to do. I think it is a very just kind of like shallow way to just like look at that game as, hey, you announce it as this, you can no longer be anything else. But either way, his other question was, what happened to Waffles and Melissa podcasting with me on a regular basis? Always enjoyed the banter between the three of you. So Waffles has been on more recently than Melissa to talk about Royal, but I think the last time Melissa was on was for the Catherine Full Body spoiler cast / review episode. So when the podcast finally came back last year after a very long hiatus, one of the big things I wanted to do with the show to kind of change it up and see what people thought was to make this a little bit more of a rotating chair instead of just, hey, every week it's Waffles, Melissa, and myself all talking about the news, answering questions, stuff like that. And I've really enjoyed that in the sense of, yes, it's nice to just be like, hey, I can hound those two every week and be like, when are we podcasting, when are we podcasting, when are we podcasting? And it is a lot more work for me to get other guests and stuff, but it kind of goes back to almost why I'm recording this episode by myself. I can't just pull someone out of thin air. Like, if I got Waffles and Melissa on this podcast, they are just not the kind of people who are going to have an opinion on something like Unreal Engine 5, especially related to the development of SMT5. It's just kind of hard. Like, this podcast, like, yes, we talk about Atlas games, we talk about SMT games, we talk about Persona games, but there are so many different aspects of what we might talk about in this as just a fandom and everything else. It's not really fair to just kind of expect everyone to sort of be on the same level I'm at, where like I'm interested in everything. I like kind of getting my hands into every little bit of the fandom as possible. But like if I threw Waffles on to talk about, let's say, like the Persona 5 manga, yes, he might be interested in that, but like I'm not going to force him to start reading it or pick up a volume or buy it or make me have to send it to him. Like I enjoy already finding people who are interested in those subsects of the community. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and assuming nothing goes horribly wrong, next week we actually should be talking about the Persona 5 manga with Gabmew, so hopefully that can happen. Alright, last couple of questions. Next one comes from Marcos, and he says, with Unreal Engine 5 being unveiled, do you think SMT5 might possibly switch engines to Unreal Engine from Unreal Engine 4? So, Marcos, you have the whole brunt of this episode for your little answer to that question, so I hope you appreciate that. And if you did not, please let me know. Next, we have some rapid-fire questions from Mark Garcia. He says, how am I doing? I have been doing a podcast by myself, and this is my second one of the week. I'm a little tired. I'm a little hungry. I'm ready to hang out with the girlfriend, so hopefully I can do that as soon as humanly possible, but thank you for asking. Next question. For SMT5, similar to P5 with DLC personas, would you want to see / use personas with certain certain Persona 1 through 5 cast members? I'm gonna say no, just because I would rather have something original as opposed to having something we've seen before be nostalgic. He says, if yes, which personas would you like to see used in SMT5? I'm gonna again go back and say I'd rather have something original, but nothing against bringing back new stuff. He says, like Dante and Bayonetta, which guest characters would you want to see as a challenge in SMT5? If I were to choose, it would be Sephiroth. Oh, that's a good choice, but I think we talked about it a little bit ago, but if I had to think of a new one just off the top of my head, someone that would be relatable but would be a fun boss. I think, let's see, for SMT5, you can't, like, I'm trying to think of just something that's not like the meme answer. So it's really tough. It's really hard to like think of a guest character that's like not just like a meme or whatever, but I would have to say at this point, I know he's been used in a ton of games, but I think if we had like a boss rush that was actually like properly unlocked, not like DLC, but seeing the 5 protagonists from 1, 2, 3, 4 and Apocalypse would be really, really cool for different challenges. Just because they're all so different, they're also visually expressive in the way that they fight. If possible, would you like to use challenge demons/monsters if they are from other games? Kind of going back to the same one of I'd like more original as opposed to leaning back on it. I know there's obviously going to be a ton of returning monsters and demons just because, hey, it's a lot easier to pull in this model we've used from 10 years ago, but cheaper is not always the best option, even though it is usually the most used option. Next question comes from Christian. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm going to totally blow your last name, and you've told me this before. Christian says, I'm actually working on a similar video. Do you think Unreal Engine 5 will impact in the time of development of SMT5? Also, are you hoping for any incremental changes during the engine compared to what we saw in the trailer? So those trailers we've seen were basically concept videos. They were not indicative of really what the game's going to look like, more of what the game's trying to feel like. Do I expect this to impact development? No, I think Atlas learned about Unreal Engine 5, looked at their Switch dev unit overheating every 17 seconds, and went, oh god, we're just sticking to UE4. They're probably already having like hell and a half just trying to get that game out, let alone like, hey, should we make this on the new engine even though we're staying on one platform? So their arms are kind of tied in terms of impacting anything. But yeah, I would say still expect at the most realistic with everything kind of considered. The earliest you're going to hear anything about that game is fall of this year, and you will be lucky to get the game out by next year's end. But the world's changing every single day, so who freaking knows? Our final question comes from Christian Forget. Wow, I was just expecting it to be like some other word, but no, it's just the word forget. He says, do you think SMT5 will try to incorporate Persona features such as social links, type mechanics, in order to appeal to the new fans of Persona 5 or the break-free Persona crowd? No development team ever wants to appeal to break-free Persona. They look at that hashtag with disgust. No developer in Japan or even Atlas West looks at hashtag break-free Persona with like any admiration. They look at that hashtag and just go like, ugh. It's like that image of the elderly man at the bus station looking at the guy holding his body pillow. It's just like, why did I go through war to experience this? No, I don't think they will. Obviously, what makes Persona unique and what makes SMT unique have a lot of core fundamentals, but that development team, I think if they took stuff like social links and added them into the game, you'd be getting closer to the line of pandering, which they probably don't want to get to. Last part of his question, he says, do you think we might see Joker in some sort of launch DLC for SMT5? I'm only laughing because I could see it. Like, if Joker can be in TMS, he can be in anything. Since they already did the same for Catherine Full Body, I think we might see some P5 or P5R content in SMT5. That'll be really interesting, especially because by the time SMT5 comes out, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to expect some sort of like save bonus for having Scramble, Catherine, or TMS. So I would love to see something like that, but it's so hard to tell. Atlas is very kind of hit or miss with how they use their save data bonus, usually more miss in the sense of everything we're kind of talking about. That is it for questions, though, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Hopefully there was not too much rambling or mumbling on my end. Either way, thank you all for listening. If you did listen to this whole podcast, you can follow all of us online. My personal Twitter is at Torchwood4SP. You can follow the podcast at SMT Network. You can find my YouTube channel where I post this podcast every week along with other videos and whatnot like reviews by searching Spencer Presley or Shin Megami Tensei Network. You can join our Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/SMT Network. You can also follow the links below to join our Discord if you'd like to give the handful of people who chat there with me every day a bit of extra competition for people to talk to. Our Discord is not the most active, but I would like to remind myself more to advertise it so it could be more active. So anyone out there listening, shout out to everyone on the Discord. You are all fantastic to talk to every day. Thank you guys for listening so much. Have a good rest of your week. See you guys.